So we already know from the video above that fat loss golden rule number 3 states that when you're choosing carbohydrates, and you do need them because number 1, they provide energy, and number 2, they provide fiber, which is going to be needed for helping you achieve your fat loss and weight loss goals. But we stated that you want to choose carbohydrates that are number 1, nutrient dense, meaning they contain a lot of minerals and vitamins. Number 2, that they are high in fiber, and I've already stated that fiber is going to help tame the blood sugar spike and the insulin response that we talked about 2 days ago. And thirdly, you want to choose carbohydrates that have a low glycemic load with each and every meal. So I want to talk about that third point here because that might be probably the least understood concept as it relates to carbohydrates. Again, you do need carbohydrates. They're obviously needed for energy as well as many other functions in the body, including brain function. So you don't want to cut them out of your diet. You just want to make smarter choices when choosing your carbohydrate foods. So let's talk about that concept of glycemic load. The term glycemic load simply refers to a ranking system for carbohydrate foods that measures the impact of one serving of that food on your blood sugar and on your insulin response. Now let's look at a diagram that we looked at 2 days ago when we first started talking about meal timing and eating several small mini meals throughout the day. Let's revisit that diagram right now. Does this look familiar? Well, it should, because we reviewed this and talked about the importance of having several small mini meals throughout the day so as to maintain a blood sugar that's in a moderate zone, not letting it get too low but not letting it get too high. Well, when you consume carbohydrates, if you consume foods that have a high glycemic load, an example would be a baked potato, for example. If you consume a large quantity of baked potato, that has a high glycemic load, meaning it's going to result in a major spike in your blood sugar. And when you have a spike in your blood sugar, like we talked about 2 days ago, 2 lessons ago, your body hormonally, a sequence of events is set in place where hormonally your body releases a hormone called insulin, which is ultimately the goal of insulin is to take that excess blood sugar, shunt it away from the bloodstream and away to the liver where it's converted to fat, which is stored on all the areas where you don't want the fat to be stored, on your abdomen and other fat storage areas. You don't want that to happen. Instead, you want to choose foods that have a low glycemic load and don't cause a spike in your blood sugar, which doesn't result in the release of that fat-storing hormone, insulin. Does that make sense? I hope so. So again, if you are unsure about this concept, what I've done is I've provided a list of foods in the toolbox area down below in the form of a PDF document, and it's going to categorize carbohydrates into fruits, vegetables, grains, cereals. These are all various forms of carbohydrates, and it gives you a number ranking of the glycemic load right beside the food. So it's going to be super simple for you to go through this list of foods, select the foods that you are already eating that have a low glycemic load, and continue to eat those foods, and in fact continue to eat more of those foods. But I also want you to go through that list, which we're going to look at here in a moment. And I want you to go through the list and find the foods that have a high glycemic load. And by the way, as you can see on your screen here, foods that have a low glycemic load, they'd have a ranking between 1 and 10. Foods that have a high glycemic load, they would have a ranking of 20 or greater. And then foods that have a moderate to medium glycemic load would be between 10 and 20. So an apple, for example, would definitely be between 1 and 10. It's probably actually 1 or 2. So it's got a very low glycemic load, whereas a baked potato might have a glycemic load of 26, indicating that it's actually going to cause a major spike in your blood sugar, and that's not going to be good if your goal is fat loss and weight loss. So hopefully that helps you understand the concept of glycemic load. Again, what I want you to do now, go down to the resource toolbox right below this video, open up that document, and then go on to the next video, and we're going to actually go through a couple example food items to help you make better choices when choosing your carbohydrate foods.